All right, gather round. Or maybe just stay put for a moment. There's this animal, you see them all the time, totally ordinary, right? But somehow it's managed to get tangled up in, well, centuries of really uneasy folklore. I'm talking about the black cat.
You really do see them everywhere, but for ages, these dark, quiet cats have carried this heavy weight of superstition. In cultures that are worlds apart, they've been tied to bad luck, bad omens, and, things that kind of operate just outside what we normally see.
Exactly. It feels like they sit right on that edge, doesn't it? Between the world we know and something else. Something a bit other. So today, we're going to really dive into the material you've shared with us. It's a fantastic collection of articles and research that digs into some, honestly, quite eerie beliefs about black cats.
Yeah, and we're going to focus particularly on those connections to the supernatural and even sorcery, looking at viewpoints from, well, all over the place, different continents.
Our goal here really is to unpack the main ideas from all this information. We want to pull out those key beliefs, the really vivid details, to help you understand why this specific animal has such a potent and often pretty feared place in folklore based on what the sources tell us.
Okay, so where do we start? The material makes it pretty clear that the idea of black cats being unlucky, that's just incredibly common, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It pops up everywhere. You hear it a lot, especially maybe from older generations, that general feeling of them being, inauspicious.
And it's interesting, it's not just a Western thing. That's often the first thought, right? The witch's cat, the familiar.
Right.
But while the sources definitely touch on that, they really highlight that cultures far away from, say, European traditions also connect black cats with negative supernatural stuff. It's like there's some shared deep down feeling about these animals in the dark.
And this is where the material gets really specific and quite fascinating. It spends a good amount of time on Thai folklore. And here, the fear around black cats seems deeply connected to beliefs about sorcerers, or as the sources put it, ka.
Yes, exactly. And specifically, there's this belief in something called ki jagra. Sometimes it's also called ko, which means ghost cat.
Ghost cat.
Yeah. And the sources point out this belief is especially strong in the southern part of Thailand. Down there, it might be called Obergat or Pi Long. So it's maybe not a universal Thai belief, but more concentrated in the south, according to this material.
Okay, Pi Jagra. And the sources actually describe how this ghost cat is supposed to come into being. It gives a couple of, frankly, disturbing origins.
It does. The first way to describe it is that it's actually created by these sorcerers. The idea is they capture the spirits of dead cats, and the sources even say it could be the spirit of a cute white cat, not just black ones initially, and then somehow raise or bind these spirits to use them. Like
tools for sorcery. Wow, okay, that's one way. What's the other?
The other way described is maybe more spontaneous, but just as creepy. It suggests that an already existing evil spirit, something like what they call a pob ghost or a pipe ghost, can actually possess the physical body of a black cat, often one that's just died.
So the cat itself wasn't inherently evil, but its body gets hijacked.
Kind of, yeah. And this possessed cat, according to these accounts, then takes on this really specific chilling nature. It's said to crave blood, raw meat, anything fresh. Very similar to how other evil spirits are described in folklore.
All right, so if you were unlucky enough to run into one, what would this Pijagra actually look like based on these descriptions?
The material paints a very specific picture. A completely jet black body, solid black. Its eyes are described as being bright red.
Red eyes.
One really key physical marker mentioned is its tail. It's supposed to be noticeably longer than a normal cat's tail.
Jet black, red eyes, unusually long tail. Those sound like things you might notice. But the sources add something crucial here, right? Something that makes it even harder to deal with.
Exactly. This is the kicker. Despite those features, the red eyes, the long tail of the sources, really stress that the Pija Gra looks so much like a regular, ordinary black cat that it's incredibly difficult to tell them apart. And that similarity, that's central to the whole belief system and the fear. You just can't easily spot the difference. Is it just a cat, or is it this?
And that confusion, that inability to know if it's mundane or monstrous, that's what makes it such an effective weapon for the sorcerer, presumably. The material says they use the Pijagra to harm enemies, right?
That's exactly it. It's sent out, approaches the victim pretending to be just some stray cat looking for attention or food. The person, unsuspecting, lets it get close, maybe pets it, and according to the belief, well, that interaction somehow leads to their death.
Leads to their death. What abilities does this thing supposedly have?
Well, the rumored powers are pretty intense. The sources say it has the ability to be kankomkan, which translates roughly as order death. The belief is that just seeing it, or especially touching it, could cause immediate death.
Instant death. Just from seeing or touching what looks like a cat, that's potent.
It is, and it doesn't stop there.
Right.
The material also claims it can become invisible at will.
Invisible.
Yep, and that it can teleport, just vanish from one spot and reappear somewhere else instantly. So you combine those abilities, ordering death, invisibility, teleportation, and you have something incredibly hard to see coming or defend against. It really amps up the fear factor.
Okay, that raises a kind of grim, practical question then. According to this folklore, how would anyone even know if a house or a person had been targeted by a pijagra? What are the signs?
The sources point to a very specific and quite macabre telltale sign. The victim appears to die from, well, what looks like heart failure. Natural causes, maybe. But the key piece of evidence, especially if the household doesn't own any cats, is finding short, black cat hairs scattered around the house, maybe near the body, sometimes even on the body. That physical evidence, the hair, is cited as the proof that the ghost cat was involved.
Wow, and the material actually gives a real-world example of this belief in action, doesn't it? An anecdote.
It does. It mentions an incident, reportedly in Krabi province, where an entire family sadly passed away. The official cause of death was ruled as heart failure for all of them.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah. But relatives apparently suspected it was the work of a pijagra. And the reason? They found this strange hole dug behind the house. And all around this hole were those short, dark cat hairs. They believed this hole was the dwelling place of the ghost cat that had attacked the family. It's a really chilling story, showing how powerful and persistent these beliefs can be.
That link between black cats and death, especially supernatural death, it seems to go even deeper in Thai culture based on the material. It touches on funeral customs too.
Very much so. There's a strong, widely held belief, described in the sources, that having a black cat near a coffin is extremely bad luck, highly inauspicious. If one appears, it absolutely must be chased away immediately.
And there's that even more dramatic belief, the one maybe more people have heard of, about jumping over the coffin.
Ah, yes. That's probably the most potent one. The belief is that if a black cat actually jumps over the coffin, the corpse inside will reanimate. And usually not in a friendly way. It's often said to come back with vengeful or malicious intentions. The idea of this seemingly simple act by a cat triggering something so terrifying is, well, it's powerful folklore.
It's really striking, and the material makes this point well, is how that specific fear, a cat, a corpse, reanimation, actually echoes in other cultures mentioned in the sources. It points to China, for instance.
Yes, the material notes a very similar belief there. If a black cat jumps over a corpse, the body is expected to revive, often described as becoming some kind of fierce ghost or jiangshi perhaps.
Fierce ghost, okay. And did they have ways to try and stop this, according to the sources?
They did. The sources mention a practice, maybe stemming from this fear, of placing sharp objects like scissors, or sometimes a ruler, on the chest of the corpse. This was believed to sort of suppress the spirit or prevent reanimation if a cat did happen to jump over.
Scissors or a ruler. That's specific.
And interestingly, that specific ritual, using scissors or a ruler near a body to ward off spirits or suppress them, the material, says that's also a belief found among Malay people for dealing with spirits around a corpse. Finding such a specific shared practice across these different cultures is pretty fascinating. Makes you wonder about shared roots or anxieties.
Definitely. So moving beyond just funerals and corpses, black cat folklore seems to take other really interesting shapes around the world. The sources bring us to Japan next and talk about a creature called the Nekoma or Nekomata.
Nekomata, yeah. The material describes it as a type of cat spirit, a yokai, which is, that broad category of supernatural creatures in Japanese folklore. And its most distinctive feature, according to the legends, is its tail. It develops a split or forked tail.
A split tail? That's a memorable image. And its powers? The sources suggest it's not just a weird-looking cat.
No, definitely not. The Nekomata is said to have significant magical abilities. It can supposedly grow to a huge size. It's also rumored to be able to reanimate the dead. There's that connection again between cats and death.
Right.
And depending on which story you hear, it might even eat its owner. Though the material does add that some legends show a different side, where a Nekomata might transform into a beautiful woman to stay with the master it was particularly fond of.
So, potentially very dangerous or maybe devoted, but definitely supernatural. And given that fear of cats turning into these things, did the Japanese folklore mentioned in the sources have any preventative measures, like the funeral practices?
It does mention one. The sources say that in some parts of Japan, because of the fear that an ordinary cat living a long life might gain enough power to become a Nekomata, there was apparently a practice of cutting off a cat's tail before burial. The idea was to stop the transformation from happening after death, or perhaps even in life.
Cutting off the tail. That's pretty drastic. Shows how seriously they took the possibility. Okay, another culture the material touches on is India. And here, the connection seems even more direct, linking black cats right to the personification of death.
Yes, that's right. The sources talk about a belief in India where black cats aren't just associated with death, they can actually be the vehicles for the goddess of death herself. The name given in the material is Pime.
The death goddess riding a black cat. That's quite an image. Is there a specific omen tied to this?
There is a very specific one mentioned. The material highlights this particular fear. If you see a black cat on the 6th day of the month, that sighting is interpreted as the death goddess making an appearance, and it's taken as a direct warning that someone nearby the sources, mention a child or just a person in general, is going to die very soon.
Wow, that's incredibly precise. And do we see that theme again here about black cats and the transition of the soul, like in the Thai beliefs?
We do, absolutely. The material states that in India, echoing that fear we saw in Thailand, if a black cat touches a dead body, the soul of that person cannot move on to the afterlife. The body is considered permanently defiled, and the soul is trapped.
It really is quite something, isn't it? You look across all these different places mentioned in the material, Thailand, China, the Malay traditions, Japan, India, and the black cat keeps showing up, not as just a pet, but as this figure tied to the supernatural, to sorcery, death, crossing boundaries. It suggests this really deep, almost primal unease about them.
It really does. And when you look at the details from the sources, you see these recurring threads, like this idea of the black cat interfering with death, causing it with the Pija Gra, serving the death goddess in India, reanimating corpses in Thailand and China, trapping souls. It speaks volumes about shared human anxieties, perhaps, about death and what comes after.
And that connection to sorcery, which was so strong in the Thai examples with the Pija Gra being used as a weapon, it connects the cat not just to passive bad luck, but to active directed harm.
Exactly. It's not just, oops, bad luck happened. It's potentially a targeted magical attack. And the cat's ordinary appearance, hiding something extraordinary and dangerous, is key. That's what makes figures like the Pija Gra so chilling in the folklore, as the material shows. It looks normal, but the belief is it's anything but.
Of course, we have to acknowledge the world's very different now than when a lot of these beliefs probably took root.
That's a really important point, and the material does bring it up. It notes that today, millions of people have black cats as pets, love them dearly, and experience absolutely no bad luck or creepy supernatural stuff.
Right. Plenty of happy black cat owners out there.
Totally. Which suggests that while the folklore is fascinating and lingers, maybe these fears are evolving or becoming more symbolic for many people today.
The material does seem to suggest these really deep fears probably came from those older times, maybe directly from stories like the Pija Gra, where that line between just an animal and a potentially dangerous supernatural being got incredibly blurry and frightening.
And it's that blurring, isn't it? The idea that something totally familiar could actually be something hidden and monstrous. That's what makes these stories stick, I think. As the material really emphasizes with the Pija Gra, its power is partly because it looks so much like any other black cat you might see wandering down the street.
So when we bring together all these different strands from the material you shared, the terrifying Pija Gra from southern Thailand, supposedly ordering death, the cats in Chinese and Malay funeral traditions feared for reanimating corpses, Japan's split-tailed Nekomata, the black cats serving as vehicles for India's death goddess. It's just crystal clear that black cats aren't merely animals in folklore. They are profoundly tangled up in the supernatural stories of cultures all over the globe.
Yeah, and these weren't just minor superstitions. The sources show they were deeply ingrained beliefs. Maybe they came from the cat's natural mystique. They're pretty stealthy and silent, or maybe, like the material highlights, from that very human fear that something looking perfectly normal might actually be something mythic and terrifying hiding in plain sight.
So, considering everything we've talked about today from this material, the next time you see a black cat, maybe darting across an alley or sitting on a fence, could you be absolutely 100% certain It's just a cat.
It definitely makes you think twice, doesn't it?
It really does. Well, that's been our deep dive into the often surprising and sometimes genuinely chilling world of black cat folklore based on the sources provided.
We hope this look into the material has given you some, well, maybe some intriguing new perspectives on an animal many of us thought we knew pretty well.
Until next time.